so we can start the meeting.
So you can say, you start the meeting too.
All right, so today is Thursday, April 20th, 2023, and we are getting here for a finance subcommittee. Can we have a roll call, Madam Chair? Secretary.
Chairperson Lay,
Here.
Mr. Rossi, Ms. Doherty.
Here.
2 present, 1 absent.
So today we're joined by CFO Ms. Turner, and she's gonna update us on the budget, this year's budget. So Ms. Turner.
Okay. So this presentation is meant to be a quick and summarized format so that you just hear where we are from here going forward. Everything that you see for the first several slides are slides that you've seen in the past, but I'm just going to point certain things out about them. For instance, this one, which is the total budget landscape, the change on this one shows how we have Chapter 70 of $228 million. The updated piece for here is we're going to increase to $13.2 million for city cash. That's a $500,000 increase from last year. They were expected to increase their required minimum contribution by $3.1 million. $500,000 of that will be in cash. The rest will be in charge-offs. The rest of these budget landscape items, such as the revolving funds, other grants, and ESSER, all remain the same as the previous presentations. The next slide is just a summary that you have seen in the past. It is the Chapter 70 summary offered by DESE. And again, over here, you'll see a big red arrow, and it's pointing to the required minimum contribution of $3.1 million for the city. That correlates to the previous slide where I said we're getting $500,000 of that. So $2.6 million in additional charge-offs will occur from the city to the school department. The next slide is just one that tries to show you the increase in the Fair Student Funding Pool each year. We're increasing by $10 million for the Fair Student Funding amount. Can you tell me, are you able to see it when it, okay. The next slide was one that I already shared with you, and it's a summary of projected revenue. We said that we're going to have $27.7 million in additional Chapter 70 funds. This slide is just showing you a summary of all of the contractual obligations that we have and staff cost increases that eat up the $27 million quite quickly. The one to point out here is the top one that said Fair Student Funding Pool increase of $10 million. The next one is just a visual showing you the Fair Student Funding increases. So, go ahead. Go ahead. I thought you... Oh.
Excuse me,
Yes,
Chair. I'm wondering, as we go through it, if I have a question, could I just ask? Okay, so on the previous slide, you said these are showing how the $27 million in additional Chapter 70 is being eaten up. I get the Fair Student Funding Pool increase. We increased that $10 million. Staff increases, that would be raises.
Step increases, possible raises, any contractual type of cost for staff, yes.
And strategic investments of $1.5 million.
So this slide, what I want you to point out is this was the original, just showing you an oversight, but there's a couple of slides in, you'll see the details to that. I break it down for you of what that what falls under those specific line items.
So there's going to be more information.
Yes.
You're not going to tell me now.
Right.
Okay. All
No,
right.
I could tell you now, but it's 2 slides from now.
Okay.
You'll actually see what we bought with the $10 million, what we bought with the strategic, you know what I mean? I tried to give you the information that I thought you would want to see at this point, being that the budgets will be printed next week. So I wanted to let you know tonight the type of things we bought so that you're aware of it before you even get the budget book.
So I'll probably then just hold any other questions till you finish. That way, I'm not asking you questions that you're already going to answer.
Okay.
May I ask, Ms. Turner, since we stopped, just wondering what the after dark and early promise, why would you decide to put that in here and not in the...
And not in the what?
Not in the, like, Why you decided to put it in this $27 million?
Because that last year, when I built the original budget last year, this current year, it did not have those amounts listed. And so when I try to show you how the money is eaten up, like I take a side-by-side comparison, current year budget compared to what I'm suggesting, and then I take the difference.
So the 442,000, that's just the increase, not the total.
The 442,000, we took it out of fall reconciliation this year because we didn't know we had to put it in. It was a brand-new program, the Early College Promise. This was the first year for that where we had to pay. And then the After Dark one, we were paying for that out of fall reconciliation as well. So this year I decided, no, let's list it out and show it as a budget item.
Okay.
So it's to try to be as transparent as possible so that you guys see everything we're paying for rather than always trying to do transfers.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So the next one, as I said, was just a visual showing how we keep increasing the fair student funded pool. The next slide is the one that I would want to point out to you. It's the $10 million, how the $10 million, it's $10.7 million actually, but I wanted you to see how the schools spent the additional funds. There was an additional assistant principal purchased, a student service specialist at the high school purchased, 78 teachers, and of that there were 20 L teachers purchased, 21 special ed teachers purchased. There were 3 tech ed teachers, 1 drama teacher. I want to point out that there are 14 health teachers as requested by School Committee Doherty. There are 7 full-time parent liaisons added this coming year, 62 additional paraprofessionals, which include special ed, L, and regular ed paraprofessionals. An additional guidance counselor was purchased, 20 additional tutors over the current year, and 6 additional math resource teachers. In addition, the schools allocated $950,000 more toward professional development, supplies, and technology.
I'm sorry to
No, sure.
interrupt. Purchase, say, why assistant principal and teachers, why we call them purchase?
Well, I shouldn't say purchase because you can't purchase a teacher, right? But how are we spending the funds?
Okay.
So it's more or less like when we gave them extra money, what did they do with the money? We want to know where'd that $10 million go. So this is actually just showing you what the $10 million bought. So, yeah, you're right. That's a good point because I can't purchase a person, right? So that's good. All right. So the next slide is actually a request from last night. It was a request to summarize FY21 to 20 this coming year. So what I did is listed out each school, how much they received. Now the amount that's listed here includes their grant, their fair student funding allocation, and their supplements. And it shows a % increase because, of course, if you have a school that only has 30 students, it might only show a $300,000 increase, but in reality, that could still be a 20% increase, but they just have significantly less students. So this is showing you this so that if you have any questions on any particular school, you could. Last year, just so you know, what we did do with the fall reconciliation money is we did not let the algorithm dictate how much the specialized schools got because sometimes it would make them see significantly less money because they have such small populations. So we would flatline them and then have them meet with Liam Skinner if they're an alternative, like a career academy. Like Liam and I met with the career academy and gave them a couple of $100,000 extra last year so that they could purchase things that they typically cannot afford. And then Frank Vicente, Dr. Vicente, would meet with the other specialized schools to see if they have additional needs. So we do have some funding set aside if he needs under the fall reconciliation line because their enrollment, when we do enrollment counts, at this point in the year, their enrollment is so low, but we know that it grows throughout the year. So we need to have that fall reconciliation line to help those type of schools. The next slide is just another visual showing you that this year, because we keep on aiming for more and more equity, we're up to 99% of using weights. We increased the base weight for every student. We also added weights for homeless students last year so that schools would get money for homeless students. This year, at the request of some of the principals, we had a ninth grade transition weight that the middle school principal said they should get as well for the fifth grade transition. So we did that as well. So I put this here to show you that we spent less on baseline, which means when they need supplements to help them get the bare minimum, they didn't need it as much because we had so much money poured in. So right now we went from 92% of weights to 99% of weights. The transition policy, which is saying when someone doesn't have enough or they see too much of a swing in the negative, we always supplement them. This year we saw too many schools that were going to exceed the gain cap, so we actually capped some of the schools so they wouldn't get $3 million extra in 1 year and not know how to spend it. So the majority of our funds right now are in equity. The next slide is just to show you the comparison of weights, and I thought this was an informative thing for you guys to see based upon your request to see a summary of impact to schools. I thought you would want to see the summary of impact to the weights so that you could see that in the first year we were spending $75 million in base weight, just the per student. We went up to $86 million. If you look at the economically disadvantaged numbers, we had like $16 million, and now we're up to $19.6 million for economically disadvantaged students. So if you look at the first column and then the FY 23-24, you'll see the significant jumps. Another one to point out would be the L, the English language learners. It was 7 million the first year, and now we're up to almost 11 million. So you see, if this slide is meant to show you how much we're spending in increased needs based upon the categories of the weights that we currently have. The next slide, and if I'm going fast so that we can allow for your questions, but if you want me to slow down, just let me know. I just know that we did start late. So this next slide right here is just a visual depiction of where we're spending the weights. It's showing you a percentage based on base weights, L students. So as you can see, the majority of our money is spent on base weights, special needs, and low-income students. The next slide, I think, is another important one that would be informative for you at this point in the budget cycle. It's trying to show you, I took the entire budget and went through side by side and put anything new that we were trying to spend. So I'm going to just throw some out there. I put the school committee directed field trip request, the school committee directed international education tours, school committee directed staff appreciation, school committee directed fund for delayed bills, 2 additional community school coordinators. We had 7 this current year. They've increased the community schools based on the turnaround schools. So we're requesting 2 additional coordinators, 1 additional occupational therapist, 3 additional speech therapists, 4 additional behavior support. This is all due to the increased special needs population. The number of enrolled students and services provided has risen significantly, so we do need these additional positions to support those students. We are requesting 3 additional curriculum specialists, we did have 3 new ones this year, and the principals found it very beneficial. They're curriculum coordinators that actually coach all of the staff in the schools to help them support the students. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
If we're having 3 more, how many curriculum specialists do we now?
Well, if we're calling a curriculum specialist, so these people were originally called district support specialists. So we had 3 that were in the student support office. We're keeping those, right? Then we got 3 district support curriculum coordinators. So, but now we're going to just call them curriculum support. There would be 6 of them, so 2 in each subject matter for the different grade levels. But actually, I think it was at your request, the additional district support for extended learning to support Carolyn Ruchello and all that she does with all of the additional grants and all. We're trying to add that. That's a request. We, after doing the Family Resource Center audit, we did want to add a student assignment manager. We also need to increase, these are all the things that were listed on that early slide, where increase to homeless transportation, increase to the copier contract, increase to health insurance, increase to facilities due to inflation. We've maintained, since I started here, his accounts at the same level, but the cost have risen drastically. He can't get as much toilet paper as he once could, so we do need to adjust for that. The out-of-district tuition rose 14%. We also have to increase for the lease cost that came in this year after we had already built the budget, so that shows as an increase. Increase to early college and after dark, as we just discussed. We want to add a vaccination clinic, a $30,000 cost, where we provide vaccination so that we can help support getting the students in and not waiting for, so the vaccination clinic. A recruitment, onboard, and diversity type person in HR that would work with onboarding and diversity. An early childhood coordination support position. It has been requested that the cardinal principal and the early childhood coordinator actually separate into two positions. So I put it here because I'm not sure how that would play out. Right now, we're still building everything, but I put it here just to show you these are the requests that are coming your way. A budget fund analyst right now, they're based upon everything that we're going through after being here for 4 years. I don't like adding positions and then have them not have a real specific duty. So after this amount of time, now I am able to define what my needs would be in that office to help support us and make sure that we don't have failures or breakdowns in systems. There's also a request for a Latinx scholar program. There's a request for dual language program implementation. Professional development for leaders and the principals. Currently, these are the type of costs that we see every year, but we don't have a budget line item. So when I start to see that we keep having to find the money, Mr. Skinner asked if we could actually just put the PD for the principals and leaders in the budget, because it is once a month. 2 instructional literacy or instructional specialists. I think there's one of each. 1 assistant principal, and these are the ones that I already had listed. The assistant principal, 78 teachers, 7 parent liaisons, 62 paras, tutors, guidance counselor, math resource teachers, increased school allocation, and a placeholder for retention and recruitment. This is an important slide because it's showing you one slide that you can say, when you get the budget book, it's this thick. But if you're looking right now, this is a quick summary to show you these are the type of things that are being asked for.
These are all new.
Right. New or increases. And what I tried to do in the actual budget document that you see, that you can see, in the budget book that I give to you this coming week, I'm going to highlight these very items in there so that you'll see the changes. And one thing important to note too is because we are in negotiation, we haven't settled or done anything with negotiations. Everything, all the salary lines are the same from one year to the next because we don't know what we're doing, right? So that's why we have to have placeholders for you know what I mean?
Yep.
So everything looks the same with those type of costs.
Do you have a total, sorry, can I ask? Do you have a total on what all these new positions are going to cost?
Yeah, it's actually all the money that we're getting, so it's, I could tell you it probably adds up to 27, it's the 27 million.
It's the total 27 million, okay.
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
So these increases, they come from principals' suggestion, requests, or, I mean, I know some of them come from the school committee, like the first 4 come from the school committee. So these increases, do you know they come from the principals or?
Yes, I could say approximately about 11 million come from the schools directly through the Fair Student Funding process. A big chunk of it comes from special ed needs, like the speech therapist, because of the increased need with special ed students. That's under the central office budget. One thing I'm putting in the budget book that you're going to get is a section that will show centrally locked supplements and pools. So you could go through that whole budget document that you have in front of you, but you'll see with every single line where I put it, whether it was put in the school pool or the central pool. And that way you'll start to understand we throw it all, anything school-related into that pool, redistribute it, and then let them pick, and then I have to update the new budget book, right? But, so yes, in answer to your question, there's school committee request in there, there's department head request in there, so like I gave examples of the budget position, the HR position, the Latinx program, dual enrollment program, expanding like the parent academy type of things, like though all those things are either status quo or increased. If they're increased, I put them here, and then I'll also highlight them in the book that you get next week. But yes, so in answer to your question, school committee, central office, special ed needs, and the actual principals.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And the next slide is just going through the vetting. Again, we use the guardrails to guide them. So for instance, the request for the health teachers, we put that as a guardrail, must have a health teacher. And then when we put that in there as a guardrail, then they get enough money where they should be able to fund it. And then, so the guardrails are the first way of vetting, but then we do the school site council process, presentation to central office from the principals, the teacher and parent and community forums that we offered through March and April. We did some in person and some in Zoom. Finance subcommittee meetings, the school committee presentation that will occur on May 3rd. We'll have public budget hearings, then we'll vote the budget and send it to city council. But we've already counted up 462 people that had one part or another. One thing I forgot to put on here, another form of vetting that we do is we sent out the survey after each presentation. We also sent it to all staff so that people that did not attend the presentation, they could see the presentation through social media and still offer suggestions. Just as a transparent note, it was brought to my attention, someone was concerned that they were afraid to share if they had they thought the survey wasn't confidential, so they felt like, and I verified, I researched it, investigated, no, it is very confidential, no one knows, we don't have a way of telling who said what. So we made sure we, reassured the person that brought that to my attention. But when we hear a concern, we try to address it so that people have faith in this process and feel comfortable to share with me or through the survey process. And we can't say yes to everything, of course. We can't say yes because if there's 5 people saying I want a new reading teacher and one school parent saying I want a new custodian, we have to go with the majority, right? There's only so much money. But we do take the survey results and have those available as well. And then finally, the next slide is just a summary. What we're trying to do every year is to keep it, I know it's redundant when we say January, February, March, here's what happens. But what I did is highlighted in red everything that has already occurred and left in black what's remaining to be done, which you'll get the books this coming week. I already have them, I'll have them sent off to printers so that you have more time. So we're trying to get them, if we can get them in by next Wednesday, you'll get them Wednesday or Thursday, which means instead of waiting, until Friday night, we're trying to get it in as soon as possible. And then we present the following week, and then we have the public hearings. Hopefully you guys vote on it, and then after that, the city council has to vote on a single line item. But that's the presentation, so if you have questions or even suggestions on what you would like to see, because I liked when you gave the suggestion last night of you would like to see the summary of impact to each school side by side. Those type of things help me know what to give you rather than a bunch of pretty pictures,
Well, for me, when I look at these increases, 78 teachers and 62 paraprofessionals additionally, I feel like, wow, that's a lot of people in addition to what we already have. So, which is good. I hope that's because it goes directly to help the students. I guess, well, it's more like I'm surprised in a way, in a good way, that we have that many. We're able to afford that many additional. So, all these budget look like we are going to have enough to continue, right? all this increase, we will have enough budget to,
Yes, because if you think of when I did the foundation budget comparison,
yeah.
the reason we're getting so many additional teachers is because we did get 350 additional English language learner students from last year to this year, and then another 320 going into next year for the projection, right?
Yeah.
So that's like 600 English language learner students. So we needed significant increases with the English language learner teachers. And again, the special ed, the special needs population, when you look at the foundation enrollment comparison, they've increased drastically as well.
Yeah.
So we needed to increase by 21 special ed teachers this year alone. And then another major, so there were, of the 78 teachers, there was one, like about 1/4 for English language learners, 1/4 for special ed, another 1/4 was for positive behavior support teachers. That was through the mental health and behavior support supplements, so that's where that money came from.
So if we need that many support staff next year, what does that say about this year? So that means this year we kind of underserved. Is that a fair?
We actually got a significant increase from last year to this year, and people did buy, we did budget for a lot, but a lot of positions went unfilled because there's no one applying for certain things, you know? So even with that in the budget, there's no guarantee we're going to be able to fill all that.
Okay.
So, you know, it's in the budget, we have the money, and we'll have the money for the next few years, definitely because of the Student Opportunity Act is not like ESSER, where it's going to come in for a couple of years and then go away.
Right.
It's coming in and it's staying because there was a lawsuit that
Hopefully,
rectified.
yeah.
I don't see it going backwards, because it's not like ESSER dollars.
Yeah.
It's not like Race to the Top, ARA money. It's actually an adjustment to the way our state does school finance budgeting. So I don't think it's going backwards. They would have to go to court to change that.
Yeah, okay. All right, I don't have any more questions. Ms. Doherty?
I guess I'll give you one suggestion right out for going forward, is that the slides be numbered. So I'm flipping through the pages and I'm like, what number is this? So that would be an easy fix. Just number the presentation so we can refer to it easier. And I guess when I'm looking at, I guess I'm on the fence, because should I be asking questions now when the full committee's not there to hear, and when your full team isn't here? Because some of the questions, I'm very interested in making sure, and it does seem like we have covered a lot of these staffing increases are going to be direct service to students, and that's very important to me. Some of them, you know, like, so let's just stay with that in particular. When you look at what came from the schools, and I know that we made a very conscious decision to provide more independence and autonomy to the schools through their school site councils, but then also to truly understand what those decisions were. When you look at the positions that came in, other than the supplies and technology, are all those positions student-facing positions? They're people who are going to be working directly with our kids.
The ones listed on the sheet in front of you do indeed seem like they're all people that would work directly with kids. See, the teachers, paras, math resource teachers, all of those, and those were done with the principal, staff, and school site councils, but then they were vetted with the curriculum, you know, the chief of curriculum, chief of schools, and chief of equity. So all three of them were present to make sure that they were still complying with like English language learner rules, special ed, caseloads, stuff like that. So it's supposed to give the school what they feel they need as a unique community, but also following the rules that we know they have to follow with DESE and the state.
Right. So the answer is that each school picked these positions, and they're all student-serving positions.
Mm-hmm. I can say, just for clarity, because I'd rather always be over clear than to leave something vague. There could be instances where a school may not have picked an L teacher, but if we said your L population that we're expecting you to have demands that you have to have another teacher because to comply with the law. So in other words, the majority of the time it's them.
You weren't on. So I don't know if you picked it up from here. Sorry, keep going though. But your answers are important.
Okay, so the majority of the the majority of, in answer to your question, the majority of the school-chosen positions, 90% of them would have been picked by the principal and the school site council. However, there could have been a few instances where if Dr. Vicente projected, like say for instance, if there was going to be an additional CSA classroom at a school and they got additional funds for those CSA students, let's say they did not pick a CSA teacher, we would have to say, wait a minute, we gave you the money, that extra money for the CSA program. So the majority of the time it was their choice, but there are certain instances where we have to step in and say, in order to be compliant, you have to do that.
Well, that's where the guardrails come in. I understand that. I think my question is really more focused on when they have to meet the guardrails. Then they have extra funding, because every year we've increased it. 10 million from last year, and I think the first year we went from 140-something million to 160 in the second year. So that was more like a $20 million increase. And as much as I'm fine with this, keeping it local, making those decisions, I think our oversight responsibility doesn't go away. So I'm trying to get to, in addition to this, I'd like maybe just a slide or whatever that says, that breaks down for every school, you know, what positions are not student-facing, or were there any that were, let's see, even when you look at a math resource teacher, do they work with the students or do they work with the teachers?
They work with the teachers, but that directly benefits the students, right? Because they're coaching the teachers on curriculum. But
even, all right, so let's go, and I don't know what number it is, but the page that talks about all these curriculum specialists. So what are those people doing? Do they report to the curriculum office, or do they report to the schools? They report to the curriculum office. And you said we broke up the district support specialists, and now we call them something. I need to understand what's being expanded in those roles and how they're going to provide services to kids, because I think we all know that we've lost a lot, that our kids have lost a lot in learning. And I'm hearing from staff in the community, we need more direct supports. We need people sitting with our students, you know, whether it's tutors. And I did notice that number of tutors is an increase on the tutors that we've already had. So those kinds of positions, whether it came from the Fair Student Funding or whether it's a central office ask, I want to understand how many we're talking about that are going to be not first frontline student services.
and justify them, right? So more or less what I think you're asking.
By school, too. Like, if you're a school that you said, okay, we need this kind of a role that's not student-facing, I need to understand why that is happening.
Okay, I can make sure that we have that available, but just so you know, the one thing the superintendent did request of each department head is to be prepared to explain any requests that they've had in front of the school committee, to justify it with data and a rationale.
That sounds excellent.
Right.
I'm just saying, if we had some, like this one slide that lays it out, if we have a slide that already spells it out for us.
Yep.
So then we can say, okay, I mean, you've got you're here anyway, I'm just saying, expand on that, break it down a little bit further for the school, the student fair student funding piece.
Right.
So that we fully understand what decisions these schools are making. And then, so the whole like instructional literacy specialists. So is there on this slide, which I don't know what number it is, because
I know, and you know what, a good point, and I can't believe something as simple as that goes right over, because we've talked about that before, and I don't know why it just never shows up when I print it.
But is one side, is there a difference in the sides, or?
No, it's just a
okay.
list.
Because you've got, on this form, summary of suggested budget changes, right? This is adding for next year, using that 27 million that Mr. Lay referenced. You've got 3 additional curriculum specialists, 2 instructional literacy specialists.
Okay, so just so you, and this is why it is good, some of them I can answer myself, but others we do need the other two.
Right, so that's why I wanted to say, I don't know if I should go into the I
Right.
mean, the purpose of this meeting is to,
Just the budget piece only.
right.
Yeah.
But if we want more information for the full committee,
Mm-hmm.
I think this would be I mean, you tell me, is this the time for me to tell
No,
you
it's-
this?
I think-
I'm not asking you to answer that.
No,
I'm
we're just
telling
taking
you.
notes.
And I want to understand, especially when we're looking at the changes, millions and millions of dollars in what the schools have decided for themselves, like,
Right.
what are those positions? And especially around how many you're going to be directly serving kids. And I'm not as concerned about the guardrails, because I know you guys have to be on top of that.
Right.
If our EL student population increase, we've got to have more EL teachers, I get that. I'm more looking at making sure that every dime, especially in staffing, is smart. It's moving us toward providing the additional supports our students need. Like, I thought, even with your point about the vaccination clinic, and you probably can't speak to this, but we invested more money in having nurses at the Family Resource Center and to try to get these back. What happened with that last year? Because this seems like a new thing. And it is a new thing, or it wouldn't be listed here.
Right.
And that would be another one of the assistant superintendents who'd be able to answer that.
Exactly. And just as I was trying to look for something as we were talking, to show it to you, but I'm glad I didn't find it because I couldn't show it publicly, right? It's not on my screen, so what good would that have been? But just so you know, school committee member Martin had requested at one point several months ago to show a side by, like the whole budget, how many principals, how many teachers, how many paras by school. So I have prepared to put into the budget book now, because I heard her say this several months ago. It's a summary showing side by side each school and how many they have of each position.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see a little snapshot.
Right.
You can't fit it on one page, of course, because it's a lot of data.
Right.
But it's, I broke it down by like the 2-strand elementary, the 4-strand elementary, the middle, the K through 8, the specialized schools, and then the high school.
Okay. And so only 20 new tutors?
Well, we're such a significant increase this current from last year to this year. That
So
was
how
one of the
many
big ones.
tutors do we have altogether?
I can tell you.
Because I know Eileen just asked for a report on tutors that we looked at last night.
Well, I have that answer right here. Just give me one second.
It just seems like tutors
We
are
have
such a
hundreds
huge,
and hundreds of tutors.
they're such a huge bang for our
They
buck,
really
because
are.
they are providing that one-on-one.
But don't forget, they buy these, so some schools will buy a significant amount because they recognize it too, but like some schools may choose to buy paras instead.
Right.
But let me tell you how many we have right here.
And then finally, my last point on this, I think when you look at the school breakdown, when you go and research out what positions schools are asking for that are not student-facing, or let's say not full-time student-facing, like, as a math resource teacher, you could say, it's not student-facing, I'm working with teachers, right? So I think it would need to be there. It's not a full-time student-facing role, in terms of us being able to see where the investments are going that are not direct support to students, right? So a math resource teacher would be in that list by school. What schools are picking roles that are not full-time student-facing, so we can look at that and just understand it. Because we're cut out of that picture with this.
When you say that, I'm thinking, trying to imagine each school, which position that is not.
Of the ones they've
That is
added.
not servicing students. I cannot think of any position inside the school.
Oh,
Right. I agree.
That's not.
I mean, full-time student-facing in front of students.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, obviously, everybody, the maintenance person is facing students,
Yeah,
all,
so, they
but I'm
also
talking
facing
about full-time
students
teaching.
directly.
Well, I have two things. One is I just counted up the tutors. It's over 200 tutors.
Okay.
All right, so there's over 200 tutors for 28 schools, so let's say that's approximately 10, like, at least, that I'm approximating right now, but let's say that's 10 tutors per school. And then, in answer to your question, what I can do is, you know how I just drafted the FTE summary, FTE meaning full-time positions?
I know what that means.
Okay, good. So if FTE, it's the budget document that each school uses, and then I hide every column and just leave their FTEs, right? What I can do for you and include it in the budget document is go through that summary that I'm going to provide, the FTE summary, and highlight the positions like a custodian or a math resource coach position or a principal that are not in the classrooms. The rest of them, the tutors, the paras, the teachers, all of those people are right in front of
But so like a curriculum specialist,
They're
an
downtown,
instructional literacy specialist, those are roles that are not student-facing as the majority of their work.
Right.
Those are the ones I want highlighted to us, so we get a sense what the schools are picking. Because like I said from the beginning, I think it is like one of the major things that's our role, is to oversee the budget. And I just want to be on top of where we're spending our money.
I'll definitely do that, but just one more point of clarification, like the examples that you're sharing right now, though that in answer to, I think this is the point you're making. Those are not schools, right? That's not
None of
how
those
it is.
positions
Like
came from the
curriculum
school.
coordinators are not. That's actually to support the schools. But the principals did say they found them beneficial, but they didn't have to buy them. It's almost like the speech therapist. We were short with speech therapists, and we had people the last couple of years saying how we needed more. Their caseloads were extreme. The schools didn't have to buy it, but we at central office knew that we had to address it, right? Well, the same thing goes with the curriculum coordinators and coaching the teachers and supporting the staff at the schools.
Right.
But I can point it out and say central office additions.
Right, so let's go back to this slide, which I don't know the number of, that you said purchases, the one that Mr. Lay pointed out, purchases made with additional fair student funding. If you look at this list, other than your professional development supplies and technology, which is under $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. That was spread out over the 28 schools, mm-hmm. right? These all on the face seem to be full-time student-facing, mm-hmm. right? Well, parent liaisons, I guess you wouldn't consider them student-facing, no. But the other ones all seem to be, and maybe they are. Maybe every school only picked for staffing, but that's not what I'm hearing. So I want to just verify what's coming.
Oh, are you hearing that schools picked positions that were not?
There are other different roles. There are other roles that I'm just trying to see what else is on the plate.
Okay, that's interesting because I just went through the whole list and these are the only ones that jumped out. The only thing I could think of is with say mental health support or behavior support. Some of the schools, like I said, some of the schools might pick an additional social worker, so it might be listed under social workers, or...
Wouldn't that be here, though?
Right, that's why I'm saying, or the paras. A lot of the mental health or behavior...
But any of those positions, a paraprofessional, mm-hmm. or any kind of... So you don't have social workers listed, you have one guidance counselor.
Right, that's it, so that's why I'm not...
And so you're saying the health teachers are already embedded, mm-hmm. because we made it a requirement. Mm-hmm. And the resource teachers work with the teachers.
Right.
But there are no other positions in these.
That's nothing that I'm aware of. And
so
that's
maybe there wouldn't be anything
right.
else.
Now, so if you had a specific question, let's say you heard something from one particular school, what I can do, or you can even do when you have the budget book itself, I'm going to give the summaries, but also listed in the book are the actual detailed budgets for every school.
By school.
Right.
With highlighting out, these are the new positions.
Well, it shows the comparison of current year to next year, yes. So if you I wish I had the document with me. But yeah, so there's sections that show, there's a whole section that shows their funding sources, like where their money's coming from and whether their enrollment went up or down. So if you wanted to look that up by school, you could. Then there's the next section, it shows the whole budget, principals, teachers, paras, math resource, custodians, mental health support positions, all of that. You can see that. The only thing I can actually think of with your question, and this is why I said it would be interesting if you had a specific school for me to research, there were some schools where if they picked a position, let's say, I'll give an example, the student, and we fixed this, but say the Lowell High School, when they wanted a student service specialist, let's say that wasn't part of the budget, the existing document, we would have put other, right? So when I put in the teaching section, I put other, and I put 6 other teachers, right? So unless you're talking about something that I'm not aware of, like they created a new type of teacher,
Right.
that's the only thing I can think of, but
Right.
I find that hard to
Okay.
believe, so I would just
So
share the
I mean, I
thoughts.
think if anyone got more social workers or is asking for that, it should be on this list.
Right, and this is
So-
going through, just so you know, this is a subcommittee, we're still working on this for the final book, too.
Okay.
So when I go through, if I see anything, like, I'll give an example, like I said, if it said mental health other, right? Say if it said mental health other on the, that when they went through their budget collab meetings, I can find out for the 6 schools that had mental health other, is this a social worker or is this some new position? But like I said, I would have heard if there were a new
Well, you
position.
can't have a new position unless
Right.
we approve the job
Exactly,
descriptions.
right, and that's my point. So I'm going to look at it and see if there's anything that I didn't find anything in.
So, I mean, and I'm not going to belabor this, I know everybody wants to go home. Just to say in closing on my comments, when you break the schools down, if you could try to clarify for us the new positions for each school, and if there's any ones that are not student-facing, they're not full-time in the classroom,
For
working
each
with kids.
school. For each school, with,
So we know these are the new ones they're putting forward for the new year. So there's an easy way to be able to say, oh, these are, the daily school, this is how they spent their student allotment this year. They're adding this, this, and this. So it's very clear. We don't have to dig through to find it. And I will rest at that point.
But can I
And I'm
just
not saying I
confirm?
won't have other questions at further budget meetings, sorry.
So for each school, a breakdown of new positions, including central office, so that it's listed more like in a list format. Instead of a summary by position, it will be a summary by school, right? Where I usually.
You can do a position too. If you, I mean, the totals were nice to see. 78 new teachers, 62 new paraprofessionals. But to be able to really look at each school, we would need to see the school as well.
So I'm going to do it, so I already have it by position, because that's what the main budget does.
Right.
What I'll do tomorrow is a breakdown of by school, including central, and then you want to see which of these positions are not in front of students. Now,
Not full-time working with students.
full.
Because I think you could argue a math resource teacher helps students because they're working on curriculum. But I think it should be noted, this is not, you're not in front of a group of kids all day.
Right, but like another example would be parent liaisons. We know it's important for parent-home.
Right, so I would
partnerships,
just, they're
but-
not student-facing.
But don't put them, and you'll know that. I'll just highlight them differently. I'll just highlight anyone that's not full-time in a classroom.
Right,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, same thing like principal and vice principal, they're not in the classroom.
Right, that's administration, right.
Right.
So, just a quick question on the, when you mentioned that you're gonna have a enrollment for each school as well. So that number of students would be the data from last October, right? Not the current year anyway, okay. That's-
But then we have the fall reconciliation.
Yeah.
So we do have a little bit of money in case one school sees a big fluctuation.
Yeah.
We still have flexibility
Right.
while we have this good influx of money. But right now, we're good, but
okay, yeah.
add enrollment tab as well.
All right, do we know what our future, or do we have special meetings that are not during our school committee meetings for the budget that we should be telling people about?
Yes, let's see, we have one May 3rd, which is the presentation.
And then I think that Monday, right?
Then that following, yep,
But, so May 3rd is our standard
right.
May meeting. So May 3rd, at the regular school committee meeting, will be the budget presentation. Okay?
And then I think
Didn't we
it's
just
May
have
8th for the job?
Yes.
And May 8th is a follow-up,
Like
Hearing.
a hearing, yes.
so those need to have weeks of notice for the public, right?
And I think they are, it was already advertised, I think Minerva already did.
Did we say a time for May 8th? Do you know that, Ms. Sheehan? Okay. Just, if we can get it out, the sooner the better, right?
I'll just-
And then what's after that?
And then the other one was a TBD, but I believe it was the following Monday. I'm trying to find it right here.
Okay. Well, that's far enough.
If we got it by email, see if I can find
Okay, I think just having those two up ahead, I mean, and obviously the May 3rd one, everybody knows what the first Wednesday.
Advertise the,
Well, the budget.
All right, that works for me. Thank you.
okay. So we'll make sure we get that out, another notice for the public hearing. We'll send it to all staff through the social media. I know it's already been advertised, and then I'll also have a follow-up email sent to the school committee.
All right. So we adjourn. Motion to adjourn. By Ms. Dorothy, second by me. Adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
So I need
Thank
to
you.
spread that out, but I know